Welcome to Bazza's podcast, brought to you by Barry York from the land down under. We discuss popular culture, history and politics. Our motto is, question everything. Did you know that in 1933 there were wild demonstrations for free speech in the streets of Brunswick, a working-class suburb in Melbourne? In 1988 I recorded an interview for the National Library of Australia with Ted Bull. Ted had been active in the free speech struggles. Just for getting up and having a say on a street corner back then, you could be beaten savagely by police and arrested. And in 1933, during the free speech struggle in Brunswick, one protester was actually shot by police and wounded. Ted was born into a low-income, working-class family in what was known as the slums of Fitzroy in Melbourne in 1914. In the early 1930s he joined the Communist Party of Australia, and after carrying his swag during the Depression he ended up on the Melbourne waterfront, where he became the secretary of the Melbourne branch of the Waterside Workers Federation. Ted died in Melbourne in 1997.
I was arrested a couple of times, but see, they were astute. They didn't, like they do now, arrest you and then take you before the court and that. What they did, they'd arrest you and of course get you away and give you a bloody doing over, and away you'd go, limp home sick and sorry, you know.
Are you talking from experience?
My word I am, yes, my word I am. And there were a lot of good people, you know, got belted up. And what's more, they enjoyed it, the coppers. Oh, yeah. And they used to read out, you know, something about you're trespassing on the footpath. Oh, no, blocking. You're blocking the pathway of pedestrians, and there was all the footpath there, but that was you were blocking. So therefore we're warning you, you've got to move. If you don't, you'll be arrested. Well, that's what happened.
Were they Brunswick police or police from...
Oh yeah, both Brunswick police, and if there was a bigger crowd than usual, more crowd, out had come a few from other places. But yeah, the Brunswick coppers, they were capable of meting out to you, one out your fate.
Did you get to know those police? I mean, were there some who became notorious?
Yeah, the one that stands out in my mind is a copper named McAllister. That's the only one that stands out in my mind, McAllister. He and incidentally, he got transferred from up the Goulburn Valley, where I'd had previous experience with that bastard.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he went from Brunswick to Collingwood. Yes, he put me in hospital, McAllister, through giving me a kicking, but that's another story, you know what I mean, in Maroopna in a boarding house.
So can you relate what happened the times you were arrested on this free speech?
What
actually happened to you though, Ted? Like, would you get up and give a talk?
Yeah, but you'd only get at the finish, like before, early in the piece you could go for a while. But it got that far, and we were attracting that many people.
Ah, right.
See, as it grew and as people, whether they came to listen, I suppose that was part, but or what was going to happen, or whether there was going to be a big brawl and that. But as we developed the crowd, and as more and more came and that, well, then they took more and more drastic action. I think Gibson was arrested once and faced the court. But what they did do, my experience was that they arrested me but gave me a blood settle for giving me a hiding. So a lot of them that happened.
How would the people react
to that? I mean, the people who were milling around
Well, they were savage. They supported, a lot of them supported us, despite the fact what we're talking about. But they were supporting the principle, I suppose, of free speech, that you should have the right to speak. Well, at the finish, it became that bad that we won. We won the free speech. See, they were told later, because it was counterproductive for them, because more and more people were demanding the right to free speech, the principle. The police took a very, very active role in all these street meetings, and most of all in Brunswick, in the free speech days. In Fitzroy and that, you'd be told, get up, and get a bloody belting or a kick in the backside and get out of it. It took a qualitative change in Brunswick, because everyone that got up to speak was arrested immediately. And you'd get half a dozen words out and you'd be arrested. Not only arrested, but the coppers would take you behind the town hall and they'd give you a bloody doing over, and a good doing over too. But as one speaker was arrested, another one would take the place, and so on and so forth. But also what you've got to remember, how far the state will go, even in free speech days, which is something surely to fight for, free speech. The coppers shot one of our people, a fellow named Shorty Patello. He was shot. Wasn't killed, thank Christ, but he carried the scar. He was very, very crook for a long, long time. And Shorty Patello, yeah, that's the price he paid. There was another fellow chained himself in a cage into the lamppost, and but that's what actually happened in the free speech days. Another time there was a prominent fellow there I called Dickie Bird. His name was Ralph Gibson. He'd been, I think he was one of the foundation members of the original Communist Party. I'm not quite sure, but he'd been in long before I was in. I joined in 1933. He joined in the early 20s, so he could have been a foundation member. But he used to get on top of the cable tram and he'd be speaking from there. Oh, there were many things we'd done, but that shows you that the state never lets up in using part of its machine wherever they can. They use the police to break up speech meetings. They use soldiers to try and break up the Yarra Bank, and they'll use anything. And what the reality is, when the people are challenging this filthy, rotten social system that we're living under now, that seems extreme poverty on one hand and yet extreme riches on the other, where one individual, the likes of Packer, can tell you his personal fortune is over 1.8 billion and his income per day is $1 million. Well, when that is challenged, you'll see that, like everywhere else in the world, the army will be used to shoot you down like dogs if you're jeopardising their privileged way of life.
Well, there's a lesson in the free speech movement, isn't there, Ted? I mean, I didn't know that anyone had actually been shot. I'm very interested in that person you mentioned for a few reasons. One of them, it sounds like an Italian name. Would that be right?
Yeah, part Italian, yes. Yeah.
What can you tell me about his background? What do you know about him? What did he do for a living? And
yes, I think he he worked for down Albert Parkway. There's a big gasworks there, Montague, round that area. I think Shorty worked there, but Shorty, he was a very solid, working class bloke. He was a party member, but he also was, he married into a very, very working class, well-known family that both men and women that took prominent parts in the struggles of those days. And they were the Andersons. Snipe Anderson, Ted Anderson, Grace that married Shorty Patello, Grace Anderson, and Ted and Snipe Anderson were prominent on the waterfront in those days. Snipe used to be the editor of the Watersider that was put out at that particular time. Then we took the name of Wharfie, the Wharfie publication, and but our great family, and were involved in all the things, you know, that were going, sheepskins for the Soviet Union, free speech, the Spanish Civil War, all those magnificent battles of the people. He was not only a great man in the free speech days, but he was also connected through marriage and through association with the Andersons.
What was his real name? Like Shorty was...
I couldn't tell you. Shorty Patello.
Patello?
Yeah, Patello. Shorty Patello.
Did he tell you anything about his background? Like when
No, we didn't. We were all involved in those things, and a strange thing, you never delved into each other's backgrounds, you know, like...
Did he live in Brunswick?
No, he lived in Albert Park, in that area, South Melbourne.
I see.
Now, he could have lived in other parts, but that's where I've known him and the Andersons. They all came from that part.
And were you at the meeting at which he was shot?
No, I wasn't at that meeting, but I took part in the free speech days. Eventually, the power of the people will decide the issue. That determines it.
I was wondering whether the suppression of free speech was really an attempt to obstruct a particular campaign or any one thing?
No, I think that behind it, because you were speaking about issues that were reflecting on the system, and you was gaining the interest of the people who you really represented, you as a spokesperson for them, I think that they could see the danger if it kept on going, you know. So it wasn't aimed specifically at one area, it was aimed specifically of suppressing the right to speak. Because they've also had vast experiences of what happened overseas. They could see that it was a great weapon to suppress the right of people to speak, suppression of the right of people to gather together in demonstrations, you know, the right to march together. See, and this must be their fear all the time, because that's displaying the people's strength.
Music is by the late, much missed Peter Gelling. Thanks to the National Library for allowing me to record Ted Ball back in 1988. Ted, rest in struggle.